Welcome, everyone, to Mexican Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp
and Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP, Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And tonight, I am bringing you a show focused on Hollywood and failed states. Or shall we call them coups? Or shall we not call them coups? It's becoming increasingly difficult to determine. And who does the determining has a lot to do with the outcomes. Latin American countries, South American countries, developing and poor countries have always been at the mercy of first world countries, imperialistic countries, countries with money and investments and domination all over the world. That's us. That's the U.S. That is the U.S. of A. And so, of course, we have a series of battles on our hands at any given time. Call it what you will. Some people don't like the fact that we have our fingers in other people's democracy. Some people don't like the fact that we, as Americans, are policing the world or that we are interfering with what is going on. But we also have to be global neighbors. Mm-hmm. We can't necessarily sit out battles for the sovereignty of nations, as have been occurring. Fights, protests that are going on around the globe, whether it's in Hong Kong or it's in Bolivia, whether it's Venezuela, or whether it is protests here on our own soil. It's been very interesting what's been going on all around the globe, and it may be a lot to take in for folks. It may be difficult to understand all of these geopolitics, but I'm going to recommend that you stay with us here on a Mexican Crossing Lines, because we cross lines, we cross borders, and we talk about geopolitics from a perspective of someone that's looking at two sides of a border ever since my birth. I have been watching what's happening in Mexico and in the United States, so I can bring you my nuanced view of geopolitics, etc. And the reason I am talking about the Hollywood propaganda machine in regards to the geopolitics, the sovereignty in nations, failed states, and coups around the globe is because they have something to say about it. Hollywood has always been part of the propaganda machine that rolls out what Americans think and believe about any given topic.
Exactly.
Any country's sovereignty. So tonight, we're going to give you a little piece of how some of these organizations and groups, like Code Pink, have been involved. We will be talking about climate policy from the perspective of Indigenous people and why that has been injected into the conversations about geopolitics and nations' sovereignties. Because climate change and climate policy are hand in glove, part of the geopolitics and the conversation on climate policy and energy policy. So we'll be taking a deeper look at an organization involving itself in Indigenous climate policy. We can, as well as the foundation, or one of the foundations that funds it, Leonardo DiCaprio's foundation. In addition, we'll be looking at some of the media that have been in the past and are now still bringing forward what I would call not very objective reporting on the different campaigns in different countries, whether it is what we saw at Standing Rock or the caravan issues that we have been covering here, or it's different countries fighting for their independence or for democracy. And those media outlets that we're going to be covering tonight include Democracy Now! And Shadowproof. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Code Pink has been involved in the past. We've covered some of their protests in the Venezuelan embassy in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Where people got arrested and carried out. Well, now they're involving themselves once again in the media, most recently in Washington, D.C., as embassy Venezuela officials were basically tweeting, or what's it called, the platform that they video on Twitter? Is it
I'm not sure.
Periscope?
Periscope.
Maybe.
Okay.
Is it Periscope? I don't know. I think it's called that. But they were video tweeting a press conference with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, in which she was she claims that she was assaulted by Medea Benjamin of the Code Pink organization.
Wow.
So we're going to go through the whole thing, what happened, and Medea is now in Bolivia. And also there is evidence that she's been in Cuba. Why is she going to all of these communist socialist countries?
Good question.
Good questions. Also, she was recently marching alongside Jane Fonda, the Jane Fonda that went to Washington, D.C. to get herself arrested multiple times. Yes, that Jane Fonda.
I see.
And this is very sad for me. Each time I discover a new celebrity that's involving themselves with the Hollywood crowd and the nonsense of climate change and, this slumming for the nonprofits and NGOs. Ted Danson's got a good gig right now on The Good Place. Why are you going and sullying yourself with these folks? I don't stand it, Ted, but I guess that's life. As well as author and climate activist Naomi Klein.
Oh, yeah.
She'll be rearing her head a couple of times during tonight's reporting. But first, I want to thank everyone for sending me story ideas, comments, questions, and sharing our shows and supporting our work. Duke, how can folks do that?
Well, you can do many things, and there we go. You can do many things and get a hold of us in many different ways. We do have a call-in line. I've had trouble with it. It's a message line. And maybe if people would help me out and try calling, just try to leave a message because I haven't been getting the messages. Trying to fix that. But the number is 701-566-0917. Again, the number is 701-566-0917. Why don't you call and just leave a quick message like, hello, it worked, or you connected, that sort of thing, so I can test that out and make sure that people, if people want to call us and leave a message, they can do that. Another way you can get a hold of us is through email. Cindy at kpppfm.com and me, Duke, at kpppfm.com. You can follow us on Facebook at 88.1 FM Fargo Moorhead, The People's Press Project, and Mexi-Can. And also, we do YouTube Lives on Duke 1517 on YouTube. And we're kind of staggering between Facebook and YouTube because two different audiences. Some people cross over. But we wanted to try to give Facebookers, a little bit of time tonight. So welcome, everyone from Facebook. I'll be posting this show on YouTube so YouTubers can actually look at it also. And we also have a website where we put all of our shows on. And we put the embedded videos and whatever information that we drum up to put on the pages at kpppfm.com. And remember, we are a nonprofit low-power FM radio station in Fargo Moorhead. We do a radio broadcast daily, 24 hours a day, and we do live streaming and Facebook and YouTube streaming, throughout the week. We have several shows that we do the same thing with. So whenever you want to find out information about us as an organization, go to kpppfm.com. And also, you can go there and learn about how to do a donation to our nonprofit organization, help keep us going. Thank you all who have been supporting us over the years, and any of your support is used wisely, and we very much appreciate it. And the other opportunity is to do underwriting. If you have a business that you would like to promote, you can make a tax-deductible donation to us, and we will put your name of the organization and what you do, maybe a few different things on the air as an underwriting spot. And I'd like to thank our newest of this month, our underwriting sponsor, Make My Life Great Again, PalomaForTrump.com. That's Paloma, number 4, Trump.com. PalomaForTrump.com. If you'd like to have a piece on one of our shows and just follow the instructions on the website, get a hold of me, and we'll go from there. And this is going to be a really good show. Everybody is very welcome.
Thank you. And I want to dive right in tonight's show to talk about the We Can organization. Now, you may recall in the last show I was talking to you about DiCaprio's involvement with climate policy and climate activism, along with the Standing Rock Phonies and Greta Thunberg.
Yep.
If you didn't catch my show on Greta Thunberg, it's a pretty interesting connection to a lot of the people that we saw gallivanting out at Standing Rock for over a year and a half. And I think that it's important for people to get an idea of how these folks were involved with the NGOs and the foundations and the funding that brought us Standing Rock, and how they're currently working on, the disaster nearest you. And in fact, I'm going to recommend to my moderator, Nemo, to go back to our kpppfm.com page and to get me the show links for my programs on publicists for predators, as well as my videotaping, my reading of the 6-part article that was written by Corey Morningstar in the
Wrong Kind of Green.
The Wrong Kind of Green, specifically the parts that pertain to Naomi Klein. Or you could just type in Naomi Klein in the search bar of our page at kpppfm.com.
Exactly.
And find all the shows I've done about her. But specifically, I think that it's important for people to know how she was involved in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So, in this Intercontinental Cry publication, which I have most recently shared with you as part of the reporting by novice wet behind the ears writer, if we can call him that, Garrett Blair. They have been covering a lot of indigenous environment types of reporting, now more so migrant refugee related. And the recent report they put out, which is too long for me to show you, has as its picture a picture of one of the women that I have recently talked about and featured, Casey Camp Horniak. And here is that image. And then in this article, which is, how those Intercontinental Cry blog pages are, they just go on and on and on and on. Mm-hmm. So they're very hard to take a picture of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to show you an excerpt from that with a photograph, which is credited to a Women Indigenous Rising Media person named Tina Pugliese. But here in this photo, she is not attributed to that organization. Instead, it says that she is from We Can International. So I had to go look that up and find out what in the heck that was about. If you want to go and check out the whole Intercontinental Cry Indigenous Peoples report that this pertains to, Nemo can share the link to that report in the comments of our show for you to go and check the whole thing out. But I'm just going to show you why this organization and their linking to these indigenous groups, indigenous policy is very important. And you would think that an organization like this, we can, tied to Tina Pugliese, who is, as far as I can tell, not indigenous, but one of the founders of this indigenous media platform that was started by Myron Dewey's Digital Smoke Signals out at camp, would be indigenous themselves. But no. Once again, we have a white woman leading this organization, co-founding this organization, and I believe that I'm having itchy back. I'm sorry, everyone. I believe that this organization wasn't filled with women of color, and more specifically indigenous women, until probably more recently in the more recent partnerships that they have. I can't say for 100% sure that that's correct, but I just have a very, very strong feeling that this organization did not start off with and has recently added the indigenous women and the women of color that are found in their organization now. But the leader, or one of the co-founders that is at the very, very top of their website, is Ms. Asprey. I will share a link to the page where all of these people and their organizational links to WeCan appear. The founder and the executive director, Asprey Orela, I don't know how to say her name, Lake, is part of the Divest, Invest, Protect campaign. Sound familiar, Duke?
Oh, yeah.
We keep finding those divest, invest, campaigns, going all the way back to Standing Rock and to the present. Mm-hmm. She is the person that is the visionary behind this organization, who brought together 100 global women leaders to draft and implement a woman's climate action agenda. That's kind of where the name comes from. They're called Women's Earth and Climate Action Network. That's what WeCan means.
Ah, okay.
So she has been a core organizer of various international rights of nature tribunals. The rights of nature versus the rights of man, right?
Yep.
And she has gotten lots of awards. She has served on the board of the Praxis Peace Institute and the steering committee for the UN's Women's Major Group. Wow. In addition, her writing has been featured in The Guardian, Common Dreams, Earth Island Journal, The Ecologist, Open Democracy, and EcoWatch. Okay? All right. Moving right along. So I just wanted to point out some of the media people connected to that. I looked to see who else was on their, well, not on necessarily on their board, but in different parts of their organization. And the first thing that came up is Michelle Cook. Michelle Cook has been recently featured on our show visiting the border camp started by the Carrizo Come Crudo tribe and run by Evan K. Duke and Myron Dewey.
Okay, that's where I recognize her
from. Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
you also recognize her from the Water Protector Legal Collective.
Yeah.
Because they were the women that were traveling around collecting money.
Under junkets.
And doing those divest junkets.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yes, that's where she comes from also.
Wow.
So, Duke, what do you think about that?
Well, first of all, any organization, any people associated with Myron Dewey, I know they're dirty. I know they're fake. And this whole this methodology that they're coming up with, it's like stealing a little bit from the 60s of protest. But they got on this whole bandwagon of the divest, trying to get big corporations to divest from, funding and being investors and big oil. and all those things. And it just has given people a lot of steam that they can go out in the community and go out and get news coverage. And I don't think they ever do anything really significant. In fact, because I think they're all fake. I think they're about stacking leadership positions, looking good, acting like they're starting a movement. I mean, how do you join a movement like that? You know, it's like you got to be part of the group. They have these high-profile people. They're involved in all this stuff that are leadership, you know, and bringing indigenous people along later. You know, it's like the intent of it's appropriating. I'm disgusted at groups like that. So as soon as I see any of those names and I see who they're connected to, I think, oh, okay, so one of those things.
Don't forget, maybe you've forgotten, but I haven't forgotten, that when Myron Dewey went to screen his Awake movie with millionaire of the 7-Eleven fortune and pretend Indigenous warrior princess Marianne Thompson Frank.
Oh, yeah.
Michelle Cook was there. Michelle Cook was involved with that whole crowd. Also, don't want you to forget, when the database of those people that were on the watch list for Border Patrol and the FBI that are being investigated for incidences that occurred at the border with violent clashes with Border Patrol and police in December of last year and January of this year. And Rob Wilson, one of the photographers that was one of the pseudo activists, one of the people that was considered a informant that got people arrested back when he was at Standing Rock, that Rob Wilson posted, as many did, that they were on the database.
Oh, yeah.
And in the comments, Michelle Cook, in the comments of the conversation about all the people that are on the database, which include many of the people she was visiting down at that camp for activists, right? She was commenting on all the great organizations that they're spreading around for people to follow that are helping. You're associating Michelle Cook as a lawyer for the Water Protector Legal Collective with known criminals, with folks that are part of your activism groups that are dangerous, not only to activists, but especially to vulnerable populations such as immigrants, migrants. But that don't bother these folks. Maybe that's why they choose them.
Yeah.
Michelle Cook boasts about being on the Water Protector Legal Collective on this bio. I would take that out of there, girl.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a very good reputation. Look what they did to Kathleen Bennett. Y'all left an innocent woman in jail, refused to help her because you were representing all the people that framed her. And you let a woman go to an early grave. Y'all have blood on your hands for what you did to Kathleen Bennett's mother. And I'm never going to let you forget what you did. But still, they're on here acting like they're some kind of saviors. That like these people are helping. And I think that they browned up their board. I think they put all of these Indigenous women in here like Casey Camp Horniak, who was recently in that film about Native Americans' resistance on Vimeo.
Yep, that's right.
Along with her son, who also got pulled over by the cops at the Texas camps recently.
Yep.
I showed all of that to you guys. Here's his mom as a senior advisor and also as a U.S. steering committee member and as an international advisory council member. I mean, this woman needs 2 more heads for all the hats she has to wear in this organization. But don't forget, what is Casey Camp Horniak associated with? The Indigenous Environmental Network.
Yep.
The Indigenous Environmental Network. Is it the same Indigenous Environmental Network that sends the lady to protests that cackles like a Disney witch and says cops and the Klan go hand in hand.
Yep, that's the one.
Who assaults journalists and films it. That IEN employee. Mm-hmm. But there are so many other problematic IEN employees, not the least of which are Joy Braun and Dallas Goldtooth. All of these folks are problematic as hell. Mm-hmm. And yet they feature prominently within these organizations. And again, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume they weren't there before.
Yeah.
Sadly, in their international advisory council, they have people like Jane Goodall. But, you know, and Dr. Vandana Shiva, I don't know if you know her. But another face on this list, which I was not that really surprised to see, was that of recurring presence, Naomi Klein from Canada. She is that one person who keeps recurring in all of this that you just didn't order in your salad. But there she is again and again with her books, with her discussions about climate change. But what does Naomi Klein actually bring to the table? Who is she really working with behind the scenes? And is she the person that is helping people, indigenous people, poor people, impoverished countries, protect Mother Nature, their resources, or their sovereignty, or does she actually undermine that? I would argue she's an underminer, and she's shown it time and time again. There are numerous examples. In fact, I could do a whole separate show on that topic alone.
That's right.
But I will say, I'm sure if you just scratch below the surface, you can find all of this for yourself. Remember, this is an organization for women's earth and climate action. But for whom? But for what purpose? Because there always is a purpose. And the reason I told Nemo to go hunt for those shows that I did on the articles written by Corey Morningstar was because they were long. They were like,
very detailed
scientific study. Mm-hmm. And I really felt like, if we're honest, I mean, I used to be the editor of a newspaper, and I just know that people's, their attention is not that great when it comes to reading long scientific articles that they may not know all the characters in.
But we did really good shows on those. In fact, I'll be running them again on the radio because they play well for audio. But also, when you take that material, they had lots of visuals and lots of pictures, so it gave us a chance to actually read it. We read the whole article, all 6. We did 6 shows on it. I mean, 10 hours or so of recording and broke them up into segments on daily shows. And it was very, very worthwhile. But it's a long read, it's a long listen if you want to watch our shows. But they were done very well. And the information keeps on getting more and more pertinent. It's like, just when you think we did that last year and it's like kind of out of date material.
I think it was 2 years ago now.
2 years ago, these characters are showing up in different capacities. And it's like, let's go back and watch that again. And we're going to learn a lot about them.
She, too, is connected to The Guardian and also The Nation. She was editor for Harper's. She reported for Rolling Stone. And I know that she's got connections over at The Intercept. This woman is, like I said, a topic in and of herself, which I definitely will want to get back to at some point. But I wanted to bring her up because, when we look at the connections between Standing Rock, when you look at the connections between Hollywood, when you look at the connections between geopolitics and crises of different sorts, whether the caravans at the border or the coup in Bolivia, you see the same people popping up again and again and again and again. And then you have to ask yourself, why are you here? What gives this specific set of people the moral authority or any other kind of authority to speak on these topics? That's what I have a problem with, especially when you're talking about a bunch of American activists telling people in Mexico how to handle immigration policy. I about lost my mind at that point. I said, nope, you know what? I'm going to have to address this. But there's a reason why you see all of these Indian faces in the We Can climate conversation, because like so many other things that are primarily affecting poor communities, it is white rich people and white rich progressives that are starting these organizations, and then in such a racist fashion turning around and telling the brown people what our solutions are, whether here or abroad. And it is the brown faces like Candy Mossett White, another person on this board from the Indigenous Environmental Network, that are legitimizing those very organizations and those Hollywood types that are getting their, they're getting their brownie points for helping the poor people of color, the Indians. Were you able to find Candy Mossett White her. Of the EIN network on the board?
There she is. Yes, she is.
And you remember her from Standing Rock.
Oh, yeah.
You remember her role.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm going to remind folks, here's two people from the Indigenous Environmental Network working with We Can.
Yep.
That's two. Just from one organization that was at Standing Rock. And finally, they have some, I'm sure, very rich and powerful people in their organization, such as Diane Rowan Rockefeller.
Oh, Rockefeller.
And she's a Rockefeller of the Rockefellers.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't even put her picture there.
Yeah.
That she gets to stay anonymous.
That's right. They just have a bowl that's filled with money.
Yeah. No, honey, that's a money tree.
It's a money tree.
It's a money tree.
It's a money tree. That's what it is. Yeah.
Wow. And right underneath the money tree, it says, "We can donate."
That's right. That's exactly what it is.
Isn't that clever?
Interesting.
What do you think about that? Who's all the people that are on their board? Notice they're all people that have been prominent in the media from Standing Rock.
Yeah, exactly.
All of the ones that I just showed you.
Mm-hmm.
What does that make you think?
Well, they
don't have no Mexicans on there.
No, and it's like, okay, they're honing in on connecting to indigenous communities because that has played well with these organizations, and they're all about raising resources. I don't know what they do. What is it they do? When you start a nonprofit organization, you have to be developed for the community good. You won't get a nonprofit status unless you have something that is for the benefit and the good of the community. So you have to have a mission that actually serves the community, in this country, because it's done through the IRS. I don't know what
they serve themselves.
They serve themselves
and pretend to serve indigenous populations and vulnerable populations while exploiting them and putting them at risk, and having brown faces like those on their board legitimize what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because if they're working with Michelle Cook, if they're working with Casey Camp Horniak, and if they're working with Candy Mossett White, why? Well, they got to be Indian friendly, right?
That's right.
They're not exploiting the resources of indigenous people. They're not actually undermining the sovereignty of those people. They're not actually leading the direction of energy policy to the detriment of those people. They're not actually cashing in on that exploitation, but they are. But they are. And so they get to have these prominent roles. You also ever notice how the same freaking people are on all the boards? They're in all the groups. They're in all the organizations. And they're part of this and this and this and this. It's like Christina Hollenbeck's bio. Like, they're 50 million things that they're a part of because it's the same freaking handful of people. They just recycle them. And, this organization is funded by the Leo DiCaprio Foundation.
What?
Yeah. So you go to the Leo DiCaprio Foundation page, and their first page, this is the Osprey founder woman.
Okay.
Posting on this page about their project, which is, as you know, We Can, and what they do there. And it says, Indigenous Women, Land Defenders of the Americas, protecting forests, climate, and the communities. And you scroll there, you'll see that the full page
This is all it
is about, there's no scrolling. You can't scroll.
No.
Okay. I was like, the whole page is full of the people. It's got Osprey. In fact, the same picture from We Can at the very top as her author pick. And then there's the very same woman that was photographed by Tina Pugliese in that Intercontinental Cry article. She's featured in this article along with their organization and what they do and how they help the Indians.
How they help. Okay.
And how they save the climate.
Yep.
And they save the people. You hear the same people showing up in media platforms that always give them very positive coverage, as we saw at Standing Rock. Those include Democracy Now! Well, I wanted to share with you who the latest person Democracy Now! Is defending, and that is Code Pink's Medea Benjamin. She went on Democracy Now! To decry the fact that she had been threatened with arrest, and it scared her very much. Here's that interview.
Our last segment.
Code Pink founder and longtime peace activist Medea Benjamin was threatened with arrest in Washington, D.C. Wednesday and accused of assaulting a sitting Congress member after being forcibly removed from a press conference for opposing the U.S.-backed coup and U.S. sanctions in Venezuela. Benjamin vehemently denies the accusations and says she was, in fact, the one assaulted when she and other activists demonstrated at a press conference hosted by Florida Democrat Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Florida Republican Mario Diaz-Balart, condemning President Nicolas Maduro and announcing the launch of a congressional Venezuela Democracy Caucus.
Medea Benjamin joins us now from Washington, D.C. Medea, what happened yesterday? Start with the beginning of the day. Where were you? What were you doing? And then what happened next?
There was a press conference being held outside to announce the creation of this new Democracy Caucus on Venezuela. And so we decided to go with our signs saying hands off Venezuela, no coup. And the Venezuelan opposition elite showed up as well. We know these people very well from the time we were part of the Embassy Protection Collective trying to stop them from taking over the Venezuelan embassy in D.C. They are thugs. And it's important to understand, Amy, that this is not about Nicolas Maduro. This is about the policy of intervention that we are opposing. And the creation of this caucus was yet another piece in that. The U.S. is paying for the salaries of a parallel government that they have set up. And these people showed up at the press conference yesterday, and they push and pull. They grabbed all of our signs. They grabbed the phone out of the hands of one of us. And I was pushed and shoved and choked and thrown to the ground. And then later, I was accused of being the one to assault Congresswoman Deborah Wasserman Schultz. And there was a bulletin put out for my arrest. They showed up my house, 5 cop cars, plus police on motorcycles, and they threatened to arrest me. I was very intimidated, and I must say that I feel that this is par for the course because, unfortunately, the police, whether it's the Capitol Police, D.C. Police, or Secret Service, have always been working hand in glove with the Venezuelan opposition. And every time we get assaulted, which is unfortunately on a regular basis, we ask them to be arrested. The police won't do it, and instead we get charged.
So explain what happened. They came to your house, like 5 squad cars of police. They attempted to arrest you, but what happened?
Motorcycles. Well, I asked where the warrant was for my arrest, and they didn't have the warrant. And they waited and waited, and they said that their detectives were looking over the footage that they had. And I said, good, look over the footage, because you'll see that I was being choked and thrown to the ground. And then after a time, they said, all right, you're free to go. Now, I don't know if that really means free, because we have the case of Max Blumenthal that 5 months after being at the Venezuelan embassy, they came and surrounded his home and did the same thing, put him in jail for 20 hours, and now he is facing court charges for a false assault arrest. We have the 4 people from the Embassy Collective who are facing very serious charges for upholding international law. We have my own partner who, for 6 months, had his passport taken away, had to report to court every week until they finally dropped the charges. So I think people should know that there is a systematic attempt to intimidate those of us who are standing up for international law, standing against U.S. policy of intervention, going back to the days of the Monroe Doctrine, standing up against the very brutal sanctions that are hurting people in Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba, and that we need more people to join us in this and get our elected officials to speak out. Right now, Bernie Sanders is the only one doing it. We need the other candidates to do so. We need our Congress to do so, to say, stop the U.S. interference in the internal affairs of other countries.
Medea Benjamin, your sign said no coup in Venezuela or Bolivia. We just have a minute, but talk about your concerns yesterday.
Well, my concerns is that this new bipartisan caucus is going to turn up the screws even more. And let's face it, they don't care about the people of Venezuela. If they did, they would lift the sanctions. What they care about is the votes in Florida. And that's why it's bipartisan. Florida is a very important state in the upcoming presidential elections. And that's why we have to stand up to the thugs, the elitists, whether it's around Venezuela or Cuba. It's not about those governments. It's about the principle of non-intervention, and I call on people to join us to say, stop the U.S. government from going back to the days where it thinks it can impose governments on other countries.
And they are saying, as you stood next to, and we're looking at video footage, you're right next to Congressmember Wasserman Schultz. You're saying the Venezuelan opposition behind you took you down on the ground?
They did. They choked me and they threw me down to the ground. I'm in pain. I couldn't sleep last night. My whole side is in pain. So they definitely were the ones that grabbed me and choked me and threw me to the ground. I guess they didn't arrest me because they saw that, and maybe they feel they would have to arrest the people who assaulted me. But once again, I do feel very intimidated, and I don't feel like this is the end, that they could show up at my house anytime with a warrant just to keep me in this process, like they have done to so many of our other comrades, to try to stop people from standing up for this principle of non-intervention.
Medea Benjamin, we thank you for being with us, co-founder of Code Pink, longtime peace activist. Happy birthday to Ishmael Daro. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh. Thanks so much for joining us.
Wow.
Okay, let's talk about this.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. First of all, I don't think she was that scared.
No.
I mean, like, she's a privileged white woman with recognition. I mean, she's one of the founding members, directors of Code Pink. She hangs out with celebrity buddies all the time. Medea has quite a bit of high profile. Medea Benjamin does. So I find it really interesting in the face of what she as a white woman is doing, which is saying, I'm in danger, I'm in fear, I got hurt, and I'm not saying she didn't, but she's saying this in the face of going to a protest where she is shouting down Venezuelan Americans, where she is shouting down and fighting with the people on the right, those people that she was complaining about that assaulted her. They're Venezuelans. They're Venezuela Americans.
Wow.
Or they're Latin-speaking people that are allies of those who wanted the caucus, this bipartisan caucus, to kick off its voting and doing its thing. Things need to progress forward. Leaving a country in limbo is not good. How long can the people of Venezuela hang on? There is an exodus, for those of you who don't know, from Venezuela still to this day. We got to experience a little bit of it when we were in Tijuana. We met up with people that were fleeing from Venezuela. I was like,
what?
And they told us how horrible it was.
Told us
I
stories,
said,
yeah.
how'd you feel about that interview they did with Maduro and the Ramos guy that had to flee, and they took his footage and then they gave it back to him. Remember that? And they're like, it's true. People are starving. There's no food in the stores.
Yeah.
I still have that interview.
Yeah, we never heard it.
We have to dig it up and play it for you so you can hear from a person that was recently in Tijuana fleeing for their lives because he had lived there for 20 years. He said, my kids were born there. All three of these kids he showed me.
Yeah.
Those kids were born there.
I remember he was in a shelter, in the Haitian shelter. It was a shelter in Tijuana
in the Haitianville.
Haitianville, where people from Haiti were there, and then
Oscar took us there.
Yeah, we spent the whole afternoon there talking with people.
And Bolivia is taking steps as well to move forward. The interim president has made the decision that they're voting, they're moving on. They're taking the next steps so that they can have a working government. What happens when there's not a working government and there is a power vacuum? Not good things.
No.
What occurs in a country that is left in limbo? Not good things. By the way, a group of Cubans were arrested for paying protesters of the MAS party, that's the Socialist Party, the Movement Towards Socialism is what it translates to, party of Evo Morales, to continue to protest in the streets. These Cubans, 2 men, 1 woman, were arrested with suitcases full of money.
Really?
Yeah. And that is not the only story that is coming out of Bolivia right now with regard to how things are shaken up. When we saw the protests in Puerto Rico, what did our contacts in the interviews that we did with the people of Puerto Rico tell us? There was a bunch of Antifa and anarchist activist Americans that came here to protest. What have we told you about what's happening in Mexico? There is a lot of American intervention and people that are getting paid to go and get in the middle of someone else's business. And a lot of those people have connections to political campaigns. Like the guy that was mentioned by Medea, Bernie Sanders.
Yep, exactly.
And other politicians. Many of them part of the Democratic Socialists of America. And incidentally, they also have ties to Hollywood, which is why we have to talk about the connections between Hollywood and countries who are in the throes of, who are in turmoil, who either want to be snapped up, snatched up, whose resources people want to take or steal or opine over, like Puerto Rico, like what's happening in Mexico, like what's happening in Bolivia, like what's happening in Chile, like what's happening in Venezuela, like what's happening in Cuba. Lots of stuff going on. So, Medea was videotaped from another angle Is that the next slide, or did I skip something?
No, that's it. I believe it's the next slide.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Next slide, please.
This is it.
It is a tweet from Max Blumenthal that Debbie Wasserman Schultz that Medea Benjamin was assaulted. Okay? So Max Blumenthal tweets at 30 seconds in, watch a member of Juan Guaido's U.S.-funded D.C. mafia choke Benjamin Medea for protesting a press conference of fake ambassador Carlos Vecchio and his tool, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Do you get the feeling he doesn't like Debbie Wasserman Schultz or Guaido, the new elected president of Venezuela that Maduro is not recognizing? And the quote-unquote DC mafia?
Yeah.
It's a bipartisan caucus. Guaido's mafia. That sounds a little bit biased to me. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
And he says then, what's the next thing he says? Read the rest of it.
Okay, I'll go back to it. Just one moment. Medea was then falsely accused of assault, visited by cops, and almost arrested.
Oh, no.
She was almost arrested.
Something bad almost happened to her. But instead, nothing bad happened to her. She does appear to be assaulting Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And I'll let you be the judge of that because I'm going to play you a video where you can see what happens for yourself. But she is holding on to her. Okay, you heard what she just said on Democracy Now! She said somebody from this right-wing opposition party grabbed her, pulled her to the ground, and she was disoriented.
Yep,
she was
hurt,
injured.
yep.
She was falling.
Then she was accused of assaulting her.
She grabbed on in some other parts of the things she said in her own defense, which I'm going to play as much of as I can for you. She says she held on for dear life because she was falling. Yes, but the person you were holding on to was Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a member of Congress. And you did not have to hold on to her. Because you are falling down on the ground, you don't have the right to grab anyone around you and go, you know what, mofo, you're coming with me. If I'm going onto the ground, you're coming with me, and just pick the nearest Congress member. You can't do that. If I were to be getting pushed and pulled by an angry mob of people, I can't just grab someone near me, especially not if they're a Congress member, and hold them under my armpit so that everyone else who's grabbing me will let me go. I still believe that would be considered an assault, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. What do you think, Duke?
Well, I'd like to watch
let's
this
watch
video if you wouldn't mind. Okay, let's bring that up.
You do it. Let's watch it. You comment.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz has been trying to speak. Our folks living in freedom, interrupting.
She was yanking Debbie Wasserman Schultz back.
Yeah.
She was pulling on her hair and
Continually,
her clothing and her arm.
Continually, too.
Okay, now I want you to play it again because you know what? I want to narrate what is happening from my perspective, and if the perspective is different on anything, please correct me, okay?
All right.
Let's jump in and go, I see this.
Yep.
Okay, roll it. Here's the front-facing angle. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is standing near the podium. Turn it up. That put their arm in between the two women was trying to stop Medea from continuing to hold on to her by putting enough distance between their bodies so that Medea would have to let go of her.
And she was clamping on.
And she was like, nope. And because he put his arm by her throat, she said, "You're choking me. You're choking me." Well, stop stepping into his arm,
Yep,
pendeja.
exactly. Yeah.
Let go of Debbie Wasserman's body and step away.
Yep.
Also, can I just say there was a Venezuelan sounding accent speaking in Spanish, narrating what was happening. And she said, there's a woman behind her pulling on her.
Yep.
By the way, I watched a longer video. I believe I was trying to find it right now, actually, so I could share it with y'all, but I can't find it. But it is a longer video of this whole
Ruckus.
Yeah, the whole thing that happened. Mm-hmm. And it's like 20 minutes long.
Okay.
I think that it's the one that the embassy, the American or the Venezuela embassy in DC was tweeting.
I see.
And a group of women with Medea Benjamin, all from Code Pink with signs, emerge as this bipartisan caucus is being announced and talked about. And people that are against having this caucus and having some kind of resolution to what's happening in Venezuela, or having the United States weigh in on it one way or the other, was being shouted down by various groups.
Okay, yeah.
And all of a sudden, these group of Code Pink ladies appear on the scene and are right front and center. Like, there was a whole crowd of people around that podium, and somehow they bullied their way into the front of that, and then like they went like showed up and they pulled out their signs like right in front of everyone like that, and it was like,
okay.
I'm going to say it was a mixture of obnoxious and aggressive. Mm-hmm. Right next to Debbie Wasserman, as you heard her say many times, she was right next to her. Mm-hmm. And kind of even a little bit behind her, and eventually behind her at some point.
Yep.
But at first in the video, she was like standing beside her at the same level. And she like whips out her sign really obnoxiously.
Yeah.
And they immediately start yelling and shouting. And, she says, we were just there. You were at a press conference for a caucus that was announcing the work they're doing on progressing with, diplomacy in Venezuela.
And you're disrupting
which you disagree with.
And you're disrupting it. It's a tactic again. And also one that if you're going to do tactics like that, you got to expect to be wrestled to the ground. When you start whipping out signs, people do it all the time now. They go into some session, they unroll their sign from the balcony, and then the Capitol Police have to come up and take the sign to get them out of there, take the sign. They've handcuffed themselves to, it's what they call civil disobedience, but it's really not, from the days of civil rights. And if you're going to do tactics like that, you got to expect you're going to get roughed up, because you're already roughing people up by, blocking everything with your sign, and people are going to get irritated. And if you're forcing your way through a crowd, you're going to get bruised up. I would expect that if I was involved in anything like that, but I would never be. So,
but she wanted to tether herself not to a piece of machinery or,
doing a lockdown.
No, she wanted.
Person.
She wanted to tether herself to Debbie Wasserman Schultz and yank on her hair as she was doing it. I mean, maybe she didn't intend to, but she couldn't see, and as people were pulling her away, and she refused to let go.
Yeah, that's what it was.
She refused to let go. What is her excuse? Does she just have, when she's falling, does she clench her fists automatically? Is that a reflex that only applies to Medea Benjamin?
And she wasn't falling. She was being pulled backwards.
She was being pulled backwards.
And she kept on pulling, and the congresswoman was just going forward saying, let go of me, let go of me.
Yes, and the reason why she portrayed it the way that she fell to the ground, or that she was pulled to the ground, there is no video that I have seen or found in which she or her tuchus touched the ground. It did not happen. No. But the reason why she would say that is when you're falling to the ground, like maybe on an icy road or a sidewalk or something.
Yeah.
You may grab on to something or someone near you to try to break your fall.
Yep.
And you do grab, right?
Yeah.
You do grab as you're falling. It is something completely natural for you to do. And it could be Debbie Wasserman Schultz. It could be anybody. It could be the Pope.
Yep.
If you're falling, a natural instinct is to grab something. And that is what she's trying to portray.
Oh, yeah.
She, an elderly woman that was simply saying, lift the sanctions and holding a peaceful sign, was wrestled to the ground by a bunch of hooligans from the right that didn't, and she's talking about Venezuelans that I incidentally thought that you were pretty comical. What is our next slide?
It's a tweet.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Where is this tweet coming from?
It's a Code Pink tweet. Medea scream.
What about the Debbie assault video?
We just watched that.
Did we?
Yeah, that's the one we've been watching.
Oh, okay. So in this article from Common Dreams, where they talk about there's Common Dreams, the publication that we just heard of, connected to the folks in the We Can Women's Climate Group.
Yeah.
Remember that? Okay. Well, this publication wrote a very nice article about what happened to Medea with the headline, "They choked me. They threw me down. They threw me down."
Okay.
Threw her down. And she says they assaulted her, and she was assaulted by the right-wing Venezuelan opposition.
Okay.
Opposition to what or whom? Nobody opposes a country. Nobody opposes Venezuela or its existence. They oppose Guaido or they oppose Maduro. And you are actually on a side. So you are a wing too. Medea Benjamin and Code Pink. Y'all are a wing. You try to portray the right wing of the Venezuela opposition as some bad guys when you're also a wing. Maybe just a nut wing, but you're wing. And they have a tweet in here, which you're sharing on the screen right now. And it is from their page. And it shares a video in which they show a different perspective that occurred prior to her going up to the area where Debbie Wasserman Schultz was. In this video, let me just set up the video, okay?
Yep.
It happened amongst the protesters near the event before or around the time that it happened, but not at the time that it happened. And it has nothing to do with her pulling on Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She is trying to say that somehow she had the right to grab onto the back of her hair, Debbie Wasserman Schultz's hair and clothing, and pull on her arm because earlier some demonstrators from the Venezuelan opposition, the right-wing Venezuelan opposition, had pushed her. And this is not a falling to the ground, but I'll let you judge for yourself. Here's the tweet, or here's the video. And listen to her scream. By the way, the person in Spanish talking to her, a Venezuelan from that right-wing opposition, is calling her a lunatic, basically.
Okay.
So, roll tape. Do you see that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is not there? She's screaming. Ridiculous lady.
So as you just saw, And y'all like to assault people.
How many deaths is your election worth?
So if Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the person up there at the front that her arms were reaching up to get, then they were pulling her back and away from Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Yeah.
Rewind and play again.
Yeah, and watch at the beginning where she's just standing there and says, "Quit choking me," and there's nobody with their hands on her.
No, I think that this is the part where they're pulling her back.
Oh, but look at her. See?
Right. Rewind it to the beginning. Now, well, hold on a minute. I want to say something. They're attempting to pull her off of Debbie Wasserman Schultz from this angle. That's what's happening.
Okay.
When they manage to pull her away and she emerges like, a mole out of the ground, she stands there and she screams as loudly as she can right there. As soon as they pull her out, look at both of her hands are free now. She's not holding on to Debbie Wasserman Schultz no more. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I just realized why I thought, this can't have anything to do with Debbie Wasserman Schultz because you don't see Debbie anywhere.
Yeah.
But she was holding on to her through a crowd of people that were trying to separate the two women. When they managed to pull her back, she stands there for a moment. Her hair is kind of messed up because she gets pulled underneath somebody's arm there. And this person, as you can see, he's holding her back. Mm-hmm. So she doesn't try to come forward to assault Debbie again.
Yep.
And she stands and screams. Look at her move forward. You see her moving forward, screaming the whole time. This guy puts his elbow up to her chest and neck, and she walked into it.
Yep.
She continued to try to get aggressive, and this person just put their elbow up, and she said, "Stop choking me." And she looks around behind her for friends, anybody that will help her. There's a man in a trench coat. She's like, uh-oh, probably Secret Service. I better go. Off she goes. Okay, so go back all the way to the beginning, and let's watch together.
Yep.
Here she comes. She pulled out. Did you hear him call her ridiculous?
Because you just saw. And y'all like to assault people.
How many deaths is your election worth?
And of course, the person that's filming says, "You guys like to assault people."
Yeah.
Sanctions are killing Venezuela.
She's standing behind the group of people that are happy about this caucus and that are Venezuelan Americans. That are Venezuelans. Medea doesn't care about the Venezuelan voice or the Venezuelan people. She cares about the Code Pink voice and the Code Pink people and what they have to say. And, damned if the Venezuelans get a voice. Who cares?
Huh.
In addition to that, Medea was also mentioned by a guy named Kevin Gotsola. Common Dreams quote. In this article, Kevin Gotsola, a reporter for Shadowproof, is quoted as saying that apparently the Capitol Police, after this incident occurred, the Capitol Police had the allegation from Debbie Wasserman Schultz that she had been assaulted. And they did not know if they could actually substantiate the allegations, but because it involved a congresswoman, it did not matter. So the Capitol Police sought to quickly coerce a political activist into submitting to their authority, even if there was no basis for that activist to do so before the allegations were corroborated by the police. Okay. Can I ask you some questions about what that said?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Okay.
I'll ask you
what
questions.
that means is that the cops had Debbie Wasserman Schultz saying
That she was assaulted.
Someone assaulted me, go arrest her. But they didn't have any evidence of that.
Yeah.
And they didn't know if they had the right to arrest based on that evidence. But because Debbie Wasserman Schultz called and she's a member of Congress, they went and did it anyway and tried to just basically scare her into going with them.
Oh, that's what they meant by the coerced an activist?
But the reality is Debbie Wasserman Schultz can clearly be seen yanking herself away from the woman she alleged and videos show is
grabbing her
Medea
hair.
Benjamin and saying, call the police. And multiple times, repeatedly screaming, let go of me.
Yep.
Let go of me. Let go of me. She repeatedly begged for this woman to stop assaulting her. Never once, although she might have been able to reach back and defend herself, did Debbie Wasserman Schultz attempt to scratch, kick, punch, or anything against her aggressor. She simply begged for help and called for the police. That is not an allegation.
Yeah.
That is a direct request to the police department to arrest someone that is assaulting you on the spot.
Exactly.
But as you can see, after she had her little tizzy fit and screamed her head off, Medea Benjamin ran away. Medea Benjamin went to hide. And do you recall who Kevin Gotsola of Shadowproof is?
Well,
do you recognize the name?
Yeah, and I'm already going, who's this Shadowproof again?
Okay.
I think it's related to. I think it's related to some other stories I remember.
Yes. Let me remind you. Gotsola was the guy who wrote a favorable article in Shadowproof defending rapist Jordan Sheridan, accused by fellow employee Carly Hammond of having assaulted her while she was drunk after getting her drunk on her birthday, along with fellow rapists and fellow employees, Ty Bayless, the cameraman, and Chelsea Lyons Kent, resident busybody.
Yeah. Nice name for her.
And by that, I mean her body was constantly busy.
Yep, she's a busybody, in fact. You know what I mean?
And, by the way, Kevin Gotsola also wrote a favorable article for another man accused and found guilty on multiple counts of sexual assault, Trevor Fitzgibbons of the Fitzgibbons Group, a PR firm that had clients that include MoveOn.org, NARAL, Edward Chelsea Manning, and Julian Assange. In fact, when Jordan Sheridan was accused of this rape, Jordan Sheridan of the TYT, of Standing Rock fame, that Jordan Sheridan was retweeted by Julian Assange. So Shadowproof, Gotsola, and Fitzgibbons, please.
You know what? I don't see that one in here.
It's right. Shadowproof? No. It's called Shadowproof, Gotsola, and Fitzgibbons.
Oh, it's this one. I had to shorten the name.
Is it? That's not called Shadowproof, Gotsola, and Fitzgibbons, but I will read it from my thing. Under Shadowproof, this is an excerpt from an article. And the headline at the top of the graphic says Shadowproof. So it says, when looking for information about Fitzgibbons, that's Trevor Fitzgibbons, the co-founder of the PR firm Fitzgibbons, you find connections to the Jordan Sheridan case. Another interesting player emerges. The authority on Fitzgibbons' scandal seems to be Kevin Gotsola of Shadowproof. It's right there on the right-hand side. Nope, that's not it. That is not it. I was pointing it out to you, though. It's right there at the top. Number 1. To the right, to the right, to the right, number 1. Yep. Okay. The investigative journalist, this is referring again to Kevin Gazzola, known for his reporting on whistleblowers, has published 2 articles dealing with Fitzgibbon's case and 1 on Jordan Sheridan. So lest you forget who this Fitzgibbon guy is, he appeared in our Publicists for Predators show because Shadowproof was one of the helpful media, the media allies that protected accused sexual assaulters and rapists like Fitzgibbon, like Jordan Sheridan. And now he's doing a solid for Medea. And of course, there's a visit from the police that she adds more detail of why she grabbed on to Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And I think this sounds very, very disingenuous. Tell me what you think.
Well, Shadowproof, from what I've seen of them, is not very reputable and also very slanted, very much slanted in promoting the cause of these faketivists,
Well, I mean this video with the police. I think she's being fake with the police. Like she's playing the victim, where clearly she was very aggressive. Her and the protesters that came with her were very aggressive. She did something inexcusable. She assaulted Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and she did it because she could. She did it because she was going to stay attached to this woman and continue to scream and make a big scene and disrupt this press conference as much as she possibly could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she doesn't have a right to assault someone in order to chain herself down to a position.
Yeah.
She did so in this case, and now in this video, she lies and tries to make herself out to be the victim. But maybe you have a different opinion. I don't know. We'll see what
I'll
you
have
think.
to watch it. I haven't seen it yet, so it's hard to comment on it. So we'll have a look.
Okay. How are you?
Take your hand that quick, please.
Oh, it's
Here, there. We're told that there was assault that occurred in the triangle earlier.
I was being assaulted. We have video footage of it. I was being assaulted. There was that crowd, the Venezuela. You know me. You know me all the time. I don't assault anybody. I'm a peaceful person. I was being pulled, and I was trying to stop from being thrown onto the ground, and that's what happened. But I was being assaulted. I was being pulled by these big guys behind me, and we have all of this on footage.
Okay. So it's allegations that there was a member of Congress complainant that says that you assaulted her.
I did not assault her, and then so.
Would you be willing to come with us?
Well, what does that mean?
That means you'd be placed under arrest, or we're going to get a warrant for you.
Look at all these police here.
We'll scale.
Oh my God!
Hey, we can scale it back.
Look at all these police here. So they are accusing me of having assaulted Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I was at the protest. I was at the press conference that the Venezuelans were doing, and they were calling a Democratic Venezuela caucus to overthrow the government of Maduro. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was there. I was standing by the side of her, and the right-wing Venezuelans were dragging me down. I grabbed onto whatever I could find, and now they're saying that I assaulted a congresswoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I didn't assault anybody. I don't assault anyone, and they are arresting me now. So I want people to get out the word that they are arresting me. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 motorcycles all around, and they are treating me like I am
so I understand there's plenty of video footage. You have video footage. We have video footage from the Capitol angles and so forth. Realize we're just here doing our job. We're not taking one side or another. We're here to do our job. We're told that you are. Come with us.
Well, can you get in a warrant?
We can get a warrant. If we can do a rush order, we'll get. Or you can come with us and we'll solve it right now. Either way. 1 second. Here's my detective.
Well, I'd rather wait and have my lawyer come.
Lieutenant Turner.
Miss, is your date of birth?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to get charged with assaulting you. So look at all the police they have here, the motorcycles they have here. They're putting out a warrant for my arrest. And this is all about being at the press conference where the right-wing Venezuelans are announcing that they're forming a caucus to basically overthrow the government of Maduro now that they have done that in Bolivia. And this is extremely disturbing, and I am now being surrounded. So,
Brown, Edward, Nora, John, Adam.
The detective coming out and speak with you a little bit further.
Mary, Edward, David,
Say you were assaulted, and we'll handle it accordingly. They're reviewing video footage and all that good stuff. It's going to be straightforward with you. That's the allegations.
yeah.
So that's the course of action. Like the process. Would you be willing to hang out and talk a little bit more? You don't have to leave your fenced-in area. You don't have to leave this area if you don't feel comfortable.
We are talking.
You're willing to hang out until the detective comes?
Well, we are talking. I'm going to go back inside and. So look at all these police surrounding me.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. All the police here, acting like I am some kind of criminal. Yep, it's all over the side here. I'll show you the side of my house. Yeah.
Can I ask you a favor?
Yeah.
Can I just ask you to stay out here until we resolve what's going on?
Well, I'm going to call my lawyer and see what they say.
Don't run off, okay?
No, I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, thank you.
See all the police here surrounding my house. So they're saying that Schultz, I was being pulled by the crowd of right-wing violent people who had, and then they were pulling me, and now they're saying that I am the one guilty of assault. So here we are, arrested. They're doing a warrant for my arrest now, accusing me of assaulting.
What's going on right now, okay, is our detectives on the way, okay, and they're re-interviewing the victims and witnesses on scene. We're trying to figure out exactly what happened, okay? Do you understand? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have questions. Are you arresting the people who attacked me?
So we're investigating that right now, and hopefully we'll figure out exactly what happened soon, okay? So I appreciate you coming out here and talking to us, okay?
Sure. Yeah, and I'd be happy to explain more if...
Sure. So detectives on their way, and
Thank
you can obviously give your side of what happened, and then we'll go from there, okay?
Yeah. So look at all these police who are here. I think I'm known for decades of work as somebody who never hit anybody in my life. I don't do that. I don't assault people. I don't hit people. I'm a nonviolent activist. And I think the police here know me and know that I don't do that. And yet, these right-wing people, I mean, they went to Max Blumenthal's house and arrested him 5 months after the embassy incident, saying that he had attacked somebody. What they do is they get us all... They make us spend months and months and thousands of dollars on lawyers, on going to courts. They did that to Ty Berry, my partner. They kept him going back and forth to court for about a year until he got so afraid of being in Washington, D.C. and being arrested for nothing, and then they finally dropped the charges. So this is part of what they do. Sign off for a minute, but if you're watching, watch and help us out in this, because I am being falsely accused of attacking a congresswoman. Okay, bye.
Okay,
Right.
so by the end of this, She's completely innocent.
Yep.
She's being falsely accused. She was the one assaulted, and someone needs to go arrest Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Can someone please arrest her? She didn't fall with her. She did not allow herself to become a human anchor. What is wrong with her? Impromptu security guards trying to wrest this Medea Benjamin off of Debbie Wasserman Schultz's back and hair are now assaulters, violent criminals that hurt her.
Yeah.
Not the other way around. When are they going to be arrested? Right? So she tries to completely deny the fact that she assaulted Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and it's on video. Like, you did. It's right there on video. And then, like a lunatic, after they pulled you out and you didn't have a hold of her anymore, you stood there and just screamed, and tried to lean into the dude. We slow-moed the video for you.
Yep.
Did you see how she walked into it?
Mm-hmm.
It's not an assault if you're walking into his elbow. He's putting his arm like this. This is a defensive move when someone is attacking you.
Plus, she's sensationalizing this whole thing with the police. You know, she's, look at all the police, and, you know, there are guys calmly talking to her, you know, and saying, we've had this report and we need to check it out. She's like, are you going to arrest me? Look at all the police. They have a motorcycle, and the motorcycle is parked over there. They're huddled around, not her. She's walking around, filming, and I'm going to go show you on the side of the house. The guy's like, please don't walk away. You know, we want to communicate with you. Please don't go away. You know, please. Oh, no, I'm just going to go over here and show people this. And she walks back and says, she wanted everybody to do this big call to action because she was being arrested, and she's just trying to sensationalize it up. I mean, it's not very good at it. You know, her method is really bad, but it's like, oh, she's taking this opportunity as something she caused to make it look like she's the victim, and she's been victimized more because of her political stance, because of all these things she stands for. She's a peace activist. She'd never hurt anyone, but she was like a scream activist as far as I can see in that crowd.
And what gives her the entitled status that makes her feel like she has the right to show up at a place like this, not get arrested, not even get injured after she assaults someone, and not have to have any consequences?
Yep.
I mean, you were trained as an activist, as an organizer. There are some people that are going to get arrested, but I mean, you expect that certain things will happen if you decide to break the law. If you're going to go and trespass or whatever.
Yeah, usually you have that in your strategy. I mean, if you're going to break the law, you have to expect some people are going to be arrested. You have to actually plan for how people get arrested. That you know, back in the day, it was like you didn't want any violence. You know, people would go limp. They wouldn't try to be not threatening, but they get cuffed and hauled away. And we had to have lawyers set up. We had to have bail money set up. I mean, those are the things that you would expect to do. If you're going to walk onto some stage, reveal some banner in front of what, you know, someone's doing there, a constitutional right of assembly, and you're in there trying to disrupt it and throw, you know, big signs in front of everything and interrupt the people that are speaking and forcing your way in there, you got it. Yeah, there's going to be some pushback, literal pushback. And I see her as like, she's never encountered this before. She's never had the cops come to her house before for things she's done. It's like, really? I find it hard to believe if she's been doing that work for, you know, years and years and years, for decades and decades.
Yeah, I think that she sounded completely exaggerating when she was on Democracy Now! And saying repeatedly that she was very threatened, that she was very scared because they sent 5 squad cars. Yeah, but if they sent 5 squad cars of, you know, extremely respectful and demonstrative officers, why would you categorize them as having threatened you?
Yeah, exactly.
Look, they're surrounding me. They're not even inside of her fenced yard.
I know, they're out on the public sidewalk.
They're on the sidewalk, like 50 feet away from her. She's like, look, they're all around me. Like they're choking her or something. I was watching that. I'm like, really? Do you feel like Eric Garner? Can you breathe, Medea? Because you're acting like they're literally, on top of you. So I think it was a complete exaggeration. And I just can't help but thinking her status as a older white woman really protected her from probably getting thrown on the ground and
tased
or having cops be more aggressive with her, because she literally just walked away from him. She's like, I don't think you have the authority to do that, so I'm not going to cooperate with you. Could you please stay here, ma'am? No, I think I'll call my lawyer. And she just walks away. It's like, wow. How do you still get away with all of that and then go on Democracy Now! And go, oh, I was super scared. Super scared.
Yeah.
What do you think, Duke?
Well, like I said, I think it was totally fake. And what she reported on Democracy Now! Was exaggeration of the reality of the stuff we just saw, which she filmed herself, and what she was saying when she was doing the stream. I am surrounded by police, and the guys are out there talking, and none of the cops were being aggressive. In fact, the one that was the negotiator was like explaining everything and telling her, well, you just come with us and we'll go settle this. Nope, I'll wait for the warrant. He's like, okay. Calls in, so they're going to have to go to a judge to get a warrant and stuff. And very, very calm, would you like some tea, please? It's almost expected that to happen. So it wasn't aggressive. It might be intimidating for you to have a bunch of cops outside, but if they're standing on the sidewalk and they want to question you about something that you were involved in, it's like, yeah, call your lawyer. But it's like, you should be used to this. If in the work you're in, I can't believe that this is the first time she ever encountered police. I can't believe that.
Oh, there's no way. She's encountered people in Code Pink have encountered police plenty. And in fact, she was talking in her Democracy Now! Interview about her partner having had 5 months or so after the Venezuela protest that they were both involved in, gotten arrested because they said he assaulted someone there.
Yeah.
And, what this is, she explains in that video, it's just a tactic to keep them having to lawyer up and be in these lengthy court cases. And no, it's not. It's called consequences. Nearly 1,000 people that came to Standing Rock and got themselves arrested ended up with having to deal with the outcomes of their court cases. And the poor legal defense that they got, if any, from the Water Protector Legal Collective, the Lakota Law Project, and the Freshet.
Yep.
So it's expected. It's expected, and it's very odd that she didn't expect it.
Yeah, I think or that she made up that.
Yeah, she characterizes the things the way that she does. So I wanted to show you that, this Gotsola person wrote an article recently, or was quoted in this article as basically mischaracterizing the aggressiveness of the police and them showing up without really having any proof of anything, even though there's ample video evidence of the assault, and telling her and threatening her and scaring her because they can, because they act as goons for the, basically they act as goons for the right that wants to overthrow the Maduro government. And they really don't have any authority. And this is the same guy, may I remind you, that wrote on behalf of accused rapist Jordan Sheridan. Here's his May 15, 2017 article. He also wrote one for Shadowproof for Fitzgibbons. And here, it was tweeted by Jordan in that first one. Can you go back to the other one?
This one?
No, the one before it.
Yeah, just a second.
The before that.
I know, this thing's stuck. Excuse me.
Okay. So Jordan Sheridan tweet. No. Now you went too far. That one. This is Jordan Sheridan's account tweeting that article by the Shadowproof writer Gotsola. And here is the Shadowproof writer Gotsola as the author of the article for the sexual misconduct charges of Fitzgibbons.
Okay.
So you can see that he tends to stand up for some people that are, I don't know.
Yep.
Medea was in Bolivia soon after this. She posted about it on her Facebook page saying, going to Bolivia, anything I need to catch up on before I go. Before that, honey. Medea in Bolivia. Before that. Nope, you're going in the wrong direction. Now you've gone too far, I think. It's called Medea. Starts with in Bolivia. She asks for contacts and tells people that she is headed out, and you know what? She's going to be going to help Bolivia. Articles should I read? I'm leaving tomorrow. I don't know if you're going to have enough time to catch up on everything Bolivia before you go and meddle in their world. But that didn't stop Medea from going to Bolivia or being part of protests there, or going in filming, Congress, or filming and reporting on what's happening to people outside of a Bolivian jail. In this video clip, she talks about what I don't think she speaks Spanish either, but what she is getting second or third hand or making up in her own mind about what's happening in this jail. Here's that video.
We are outside the jail in La Paz, where actually hundreds of people have been arrested and taken in here at different protests. Most of the people inside, well, the people that you see outside here waiting are relatives of the people inside. They are mostly indigenous people, campesinos, people who have been arrested in different protests, and they're being charged with sedition, some of them with treason, some of them with delinquency. I was just allowed to go inside as press and was able to talk to one of the young women. In her case, she said she's an anthropology student at the university, and she had her wipala, that's the flag, the indigenous flag that you see flying all over the place here. She was carrying her wipala, and she was not even in a demonstration. There was a demonstration going by, and they started shooting the tear gas at people, and she went to hide behind a kiosk, and because she was there with her indigenous flag, she was arrested, and at first was accused of everything, including treason, which is a very difficult charge. She finally got a lawyer and they reduced the charges, but she's been in jail now Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, without being able to see a judge to get a hearing. And her case is similar to many others who have just been picked up. We met some other people who said that they were, again, sort of walking down the street and were picked up, swooped up in a crowd. Other people from the indigenous community have been part of protests, but the way they're treated inside, it's very, very tiny cells. They're all crowded in there. They have to sleep on the floor. They're not given any food. There are a couple of hours that relatives are allowed to come in and bring the food, but that's the only food that they have. Very rough treatment inside. And many of these people who are coming from the countryside, they don't have money, and they have been here since Friday, Saturday, Sunday, some of them sleeping in the street. They have had to get money from the community to be able to hire lawyers. They don't understand anything of what this process is about. A woman inside was crying and saying she's left her children alone, they don't have money to get back home. This is real hardship for people, and it's part of the repression that's been unleashed against the indigenous community, who are trying to get the government that they consider the legitimate government back, and so they've been participating in protests for that. But this is meant to be
kicking it in Bolivia.
Yeah.
Getting involved there. Remember, I told you that there was a group of people just arrested from Cuba, 2 men, 1 woman, carrying briefcases, suitcases full of money, which they were giving to members of the MAS political party, the Socialist Party, movement toward socialism party of Evo Morales for protesting. Interfering from Cuba. Medea was also in Cuba. Here is a picture of her. And she also posted others on her social media account in which she talks about the resistance of Cuba to outside intervention from other countries. But remember, Medea, Code Pink, and these folks also represent a form of intervention. In this post, she talks about Cuba, saying what, Duke?
So great being in Cuba. Not many
material things,
but such great community. Sharing, helping each other. I can't quite read the whole thing. It's too small.
Right. And there's a picture of Che Guevara.
Yeah.
Who is an Argentinian.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the liberators of Cuba was an Argentinian who was hanging out in Mexico for a while.
Yeah.
Like Evo Morales is doing right now, hanging out in Mexico for a while. Everybody likes to go hide there. But, you know, when these people in Code Pink tell you that they oppose interventionism in other countries, they're not opposed to their own. They're opposed to others of these groups that are comprised in many cases of the people from that country, just in opposition to socialist or communist governments. And there are many people, for many reasons, that do and still, they still want sovereignty for their country. They just don't want communism, or they don't want socialism. And they certainly don't want groups like Code Pink with their climate activism bent interfering in the policy, in the energy policy, and all of these other matters in their countries. At least I don't think most people do, especially without their consent or knowledge. You know, people like to be asked. But climate activists like this are also supported by Hollywood and the propaganda coming out of there. Another person that has joined the ranks amongst these Hollywood actors involving themselves with these con artivists is Ted Danson, sadly.
Oh.
I know.
The Good Place guy?
Yeah.
Oh, it's too bad.
I told you, eventually I'm going to shatter all of your dreams.
Yep.
One by one.
Can't have any heroes
You
anymore.
can't have nice things.
No.
Because these people. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's just like, you know, with the advent of these channels like Netflix and Hulu and all of these different premium channels, it's like, you know, there was a time when actors on TV would never, actors on movies, on the big screen would never consider doing TV shows.
Oh yeah, it was beneath them. It was a media that was beneath them. So they couldn't do television because it was
or commercials
or a commercial. Oh, my goodness, you know.
Like, oh my God, did you see so and so is in a commercial for Alka-Seltzer? And they're like, oh no, his career's over. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. I mean, that was like a death knell. Mm-hmm. And now, like, people do, like, there was even a time, I don't know if people know this, but there's even a time that some actors of the movie screen, like Tom Cruise, and even people like De Niro, would make commercials, but only in super wealthy countries that paid them millions of dollars, similar to what they would make if they were in a movie for a commercial.
Yeah, exactly.
And they did that in Japan. And so they actually did commercials in Japan, many of them, as an example. And so maybe now that media has changed so radically, and you might get a Netflix series and, you know, that's a gig. Or you might, you know, get a special release to Netflix only movie or produced by Hulu only movie. or show. And that's your acting now. And it pays a lot less, and you have to do a whole bunch of them in order to make enough money or do something like this on the side. Because what we see is a recycling of the same old actors, and by old, I mean old, like Jane Fonda old. Here she is at the climate summit, or the climate activists group that recently was marching. There's Jane Fonda and a woman named Anne Leonard. You skipped over Jane Medea marching in 2019, which came before this slide, and it shows Medea Benjamin, that just assaulted Debbie Wasserman Schultz, marching recently, just October 11th.
Wow.
With Jane Fonda, who's, as you know, has been in D.C. getting arrested a bajillion times for the Green New Deal and climate change and all this great stuff. And Jody Evans, of course, is the founder of Code Pink. So Jody posted this on her page, and there's a picture of these women with Anne Leonard gets posted as well. Same clothes, same day. They're all there. There she is. And so I went and I checked out who this Anne Leonard was, and on her page, she posted this picture of Naomi Klein being there as well. This is from the same day, same march. Can you see the hat?
Yeah, the same clothes.
Same clothes and everything, same sign. And Naomi Klein was there.
I see.
Also. And this was posted on Anne Leonard's page, as you can see.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, they were all there.
Yeah.
The Hollywood people, the Code Pink people, the everything. And they're all working not just on what's happening in America. They're working on geopolitics having to do with this climate change. Guess what else I found on Anne Leonard's page?
What?
She's friends with Enola Duke.
What?
In fact, she even fundraised for her earlier this summer for Honor the Earth.
Oh, my God.
And donated. Nice.
Nice.
So, yeah, that's how all of that circles around. And, you know, it's a constant circle jerk.
Yeah.
Because, and I call it that because it is a bunch of jerky people who are connected to each other. So you think, oh, it's Code Pink, and then those just a part of the Standing Rock Indigenous media groups like Activate Now or Digital Smoke Signals. No, it's a cluster. They cross, they go into each other's orgs, they work on each other's different campaigns and marches, and it's just one big soup. And what this does is go into other countries and co-opt movements, like indigenous-led movements, co-opt issues like migration and immigration policy, co-opt problems like an authoritarian government crossing the lines. And they take hold of the problem, of the issue, and they hijack it.
Yeah.
They hijack it. And they have something to do with denominations of failed states and coups. They have something to do with destabilizing countries and movements, along with Hollywood. So we need to begin to draw those conclusions between those groups and be able to see how those things are connected to indigenous-led movements. I want to pull the wool off of these wolves in sheep's clothing that are portraying themselves not only as activists for good, but protectors of the vulnerable and of the sacred when they are not. And I'm going to continue to expose them here on A Mexican Crossing Lines. With your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You've been listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead. We are just adding color to your airwaves. And we'll keep doing it every day. Keep it tuned. Thanks for being with us.